Welcome to the Breaking News Bears podcast. I'm your host, Chris Capone, joined alongside my co-host once again, Evan Davis. And the beginning of the regular season is just a week away. The start of the regular season for the 28 other teams not named the Cubs and Dodgers starts on March 27th. So what better way to wrap up spring training than talk about some predictions that we have going into the regular season, including all of our award predictions for both American and National Leagues, and other season predictions we have, including division winners. And what are our thoughts on recapping the 2025 Tokyo series between the Dodgers and Cubs? So, Evan, first, I'll start you off with this. What are your thoughts on the Tokyo series and your Dodgers being 160 wins away from a perfect season?
Well, first of all, I think the Tokyo series is super fun, and just it was very encouraging signs from the Dodgers just to get those two wins without Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. But I don't know, I still think it's kind of weird, like how we start this season in Tokyo during the middle of the week. Like this just feels like a series. Like I don't have a problem with it being in Tokyo. I just think. Maybe make the first game, like Saturday morning or, Friday night and then like Saturday morning the next game or Sunday night, just so that people can actually watch it because you're talking about like fans in LA waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're talking about fans in Chicago waking up as well early in the morning at 5 a.m. So you can watch the game, but you got to go to work, so that's the only thing that sucked. But nonetheless, it was super fun, cool seeing Roki Sasaki pitch and seeing Yamamoto dominate in the first game of the year, and yeah, just 160 wins away from a perfect season.
Yeah, I know, and that's the one thing about the Tokyo series that I think a lot of people don't really take it too seriously. It's beginning of the season in another country and on a completely different time zone.
Hmm.
And then most of the time, like Imanaga only pitched 4 innings in his
Yeah,
start, and it's like you're not going to get like a full 7 innings out of anyone because it's still basically a glorified spring training game that
kind
just
of.
happens to
Yeah.
matter for the regular season. So I just wish there was a way that they could integrate it better into this like the season schedule, but
Uh-huh.
it's there's too many games that have to matter for like selling off tickets and stuff like in Dodger Stadium in
Yeah.
Wrigley Field. That's 2 games of and it's money that's not going to the teams to their ticket sales. So I get why no one wants to give up like a game after the All-Star break or two that are in Japan or in another country.
Uh-huh. But I
But
think
yeah,
it also makes sense to do it now because of like the time difference. I mean, you're talking about players in LA. That's like a 14-hour time difference
yeah.
going to Japan, 12 hours in Chicago. So, I think it's better to have it now and then allow them to get reacclimated again to their time zone because I just think it's such a disadvantage. Like, they would have to go like during the All-Star break or something like that. Like I don't think it would be fair for like the Dodgers and the Cubs to come back and then like the next day immediately have to start a new series. Like at least for this, you get some time to rest, and like yeah, you're right. Like it's a spring training game that just happens to matter. Because like you look at Imanaga only going 4 innings, Yamamoto went 5 innings, but like you could make an argument that both could have gone longer. And even just some of the bullpen guys that were used, I don't think situationally they would be used like that during the regular season, like the actual regular season. But the fact that it's spring training, you're kind of feeling out, could this guy be a long inning reliever for me? Why not just try it now?
Yeah, and one thing that's kind of interesting is the MLB does have another international series. It's in London, and that actually takes place during the season.
Hmm.
But the thing is, like you said, it's a 14-hour time difference for players from like the West Coast compared to like a 5-hour difference from players from the East Coast going to London. And that's what they normally do. They normally put teams from the East Coast going to London, so it's
Yeah.
not as much of a time difference. Because going to Tokyo is a completely different thing. Going uh, across the globe, flipping your sleep schedule and everything on its head, and then having to come back would be hell for the players, pretty much. Let's just keep it a buck.
Yeah.
Um, so
Geez, I didn't realize it's 16 hours from
yeah,
California with LA and Tokyo. So then 14 hours. I mean, yeah, you're talking about a full day almost.
yeah, you're flipping your entire sleep schedule on its head, and that would suck for during the season, which is why I know why there. That's the main reason why the MLB does this now rather than what they do with the London series in the middle of the season. But one thing I want to bring up is, like you said, the debut of Roki Sasaki pitched 5 innings, and he had a pretty solid start.
Three.
Oh, I thought it was five.
Nah, I gave
I
up
was thinking of
five
thing.
walks.
Yeah, I got the numbers mixed up. But yeah, pretty solid start for his debut. Like obviously there was a lot of nerves around it. Starting the new season with a new team,
Hmm.
uh, and then obviously being in the biggest stadium in Japan, being in the Tokyo Dome,
Hmm.
it was a pretty cool thing to see. Having Yamamoto start the first game and Sasaki start the other, along with Imanaga on the other side.
And then the
It was a
guy from Missouri.
Yeah, and then a guy from Missouri, Justin Steele, but still a pretty cool way to start the season.
Yeah, and look, I think you look at Roki Sasaki, like the raw stuff is there, and I felt like it was really encouraging to see him get out of the bases loaded jam. I believe that was like in the second inning. It was like bases loaded with one out, gets two strikeouts. Like that's the stuff you want to see, and like people are gonna make a big deal about this, but like if you don't recall, Yamamoto and he didn't even make it an inning and a third in
Yeah,
his debut, and Roki Sasaki is 4 years younger than when Yamamoto made his debut. So I think what's encouraging is like that splitter is just disgusting. I mean, I don't think I've seen a splitter that looks like a fastball until it's not, which is what a splitter is supposed to do. But like when you look at it, like right out of his hand, it looks like a fastball, and then it just takes a nosedive. So
props.
it's insane. So I think you look at like just the raw stuff. That's what people really care about. Like the five walks, whatever. He'll figure that part out. But, I just think just seeing him actually, get through 3 innings, get out of that jam, give the Dodgers a chance to win that game, I think that's really encouraging. And I mean, if he could develop even like another wipeout pitch, he might be a Cy Young winner in 3 years.
I know, like just looking at what he's doing already, like you said, the raw stuff is there, and kind of a spoiler, but I don't have him winning the Rookie of the Year this year just because
Wow.
he's gonna be learning a lot of
Boo.
stuff
Boo.
throughout this season, but
Boo.
he's really there. You can really see like the baseline of what the Dodgers pitching staff, and they do a great job at doing this, of like building up a player's repertoire and building up their arsenal of pitches.
Hmm.
And like really refining and making, like you said, getting a knockout pitch, getting a killer pitch to end at bats with. And he already has that with the splitter, but if he can add something else also on top of it, he already throws 101
Hmm.
fastball. That's also good enough. But even when velocity starts to taper throughout a long start, there could be, like a really good slider that finishes, or a cutter, something else
Hmm.
that he could work on.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's something
God,
kind of a
imagine
spoiler
him
for
with a
later.
cutter. Imagine
I
him
know.
with a cutter. Oh, that'd be devastating. Or like a sinker. Oof,
Yeah. But
that would
yeah,
be.
the Tokyo series was really cool. They did this
Mhm.
last year with the Seoul series. Do you think MLB tries to find another place to start next season? Because they already did Korea last year, they did Tokyo this year. Do you think they just stay in Tokyo for another year? Because those are the two big markets that outside of like in Asia that really love baseball, Korea and Japan. So
Yeah.
is there another? Do they just keep going back and forth, like alternating every season? Like, okay,
Hmm.
we'll start in Korea next year again, and then.
Yeah, I feel like you gotta go to Japan though. Like that's where the market is. Like that, like you look at the amount of billboards that were made for Otani and like you see the lure of him, Sasaki, uh, Imanaga, Yamamoto, Suzuki, like Japanese baseball in terms of talent and also just like marketability is becoming a real big thing. So look, I think until Shohei Ohtani retires from the Dodgers. Like the Dodgers are going to be there every year. It's just a matter of, who is their opponent going to be. And I thought like bringing the Cubs this year was great. Obviously, last year, with the Padres, you had Hugh Darvish, you had Yuki Matsui, like you had some other Japanese players, but I think if you continue on with the Dodgers and another team, like you're gonna make a ton of money. And the MLB did. I think they made like $40 million in jersey sales from just that weekend alone. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. And this kind of relationship between NPB and uh MLB is working really well, where
Hmm.
player turns 25 or something, or Sasaki got released from his club or got posted by his club way earlier. But most of the
Hmm.
time, other players from NPB, the Japanese Professional League, uh, get posted like around their 25 season. So they already play like 5 seasons in Japan, and then they get to
Hmm.
go to the major leagues. It's kind of like a glorified AAA for like it's around the same level as AAA, I feel like the
Yeah.
way that these players can just come over from Japan, a completely different country, and still produce at a really high level, like in their first season immediately coming out from Japan. It's really good to see that, like, it's kind of a good pipeline and it makes these kinds of international games so much more like marketable. Like if someone from Japan came over from NPB and was just like buns and they weren't good at all, like it would be a lot worse to like market it because then it's like, okay, well, it's kind of just like a coming home party, but no one's actually good. But no, Otani, uh, obviously the best player in baseball right now. And Yamamoto
Hmm.
had a really good season despite even going through that injury last year, missing a big chunk of it.
Yeah.
Sasaki's really young and shows everyone that he's a raw prospect, but he's still like he can refine everything up.
Hmm.
And then obviously Imanaga had an incredible rookie season last year at 30, and Seiya
Hmm.
Suzuki's been pretty solid for the Cubs in his time.
Hmm.
And there's so many other Japanese players across MLB that are really good rotational pieces on their certain teams. And
Hmm.
that's what I like about this Tokyo series is that it kind of like brings these players back to Japan because most of them don't go back to Japan until either the end of their career or once they retire. So it's
Hmm.
kind of cool to see this.
Yeah, and when Munetaka Murakami is a Dodger next year, I mean, you're
Yeah.
talking because that's just their AAA team. But no, I think it is really cool, and I think it's great that MLB is growing the game because I mean, it's no disrespect to the NPB, but that just feels like it's now become a placeholder for guys to eventually get to the major league levels. And like, there's
Yeah.
obviously some players that might not want to play in the MLB because they just want to stay at home. And, it can be a long travel
Yeah.
between wherever they play in their hometown. But I think the way that Rob Manfred and like baseball wants to do this is like, kind of make the NPB a filler and a placeholder. And if guys want to revitalize their career, they go there. And if guys want to start there and then move to the MLB, like we're seeing the success of it already with Otani, Yamamoto, Sasaki, Imanaga, all these guys, and even Eric Fetty. I mean, I mean, obviously he's not Japanese, but this is a guy that also went to the NPB, kind of figured it out, and then now got
Came
rewarded
back.
with a 2-year MLB deal. So I definitely think we're trending in the right direction with this.
Yeah. Moving on, we'll talk about division winners and what we predict for the division winners in MLB. Um, so we'll kind of just talk about, I guess we can start with the NL, and I'm pretty sure we both have the same answer for the NL West. I have the Dodgers
Mm-hmm.
as my winner. I'm pretty sure you do too.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's self-explanatory. We don't need to talk about that explanation.
Um, I mean, obviously they just have the best put together team. Um, my next winner I have for the NL Central, I have the Chicago Cubs, the other Tokyo Series team,
Mm,
winning the NL Central.
I'd
And I just
love to
think
hear that.
I love the addition of Kyle Tucker. Obviously, he didn't have a good he hasn't had a good spring training and he only had one hit. I think it was in the ninth inning,
Yeah, against
in
Vesia.
the
Yeah,
second game.
yeah.
But I still think he's going to get back into it. Obviously, he missed half the season last year with an injury. Kyle Tucker did.
Hmm.
And I think he'll get back to obviously not exactly what he did last year. I don't think he'll OPS around 1,000 and have 28 like homers in 78 games or something. But I
Hmm.
think he'll have a very good season for the Cubs. And I think that's kind of what they needed. Trading Cody Bellinger and getting Kyle Tucker in return. They got Matt Shaw is now going to be the starting third baseman, and he looked pretty good in his couple plate appearances in Japan. Um, I just think the Cubs are going to be a little bit better than the Brewers. And I think the
Hmm.
Brewers, losing Willie Adames was huge and trading away Devin Williams. And they still have a really young team. And like I said before, the Brewers are kind of like the Rays of the NL, where
Hmm.
even when they lose a lot of their big name players, they still somehow just keep winning.
Hmm.
I just think this is the year for the Cubs to kind of put things together and just the NL Central is pretty weak when you look at it as a
Hmm.
whole. It's the
Hmm.
weakest division in the National League. So
Hmm.
I think they could beat up on some teams like the Cardinals and Pirates a couple times and maybe the Reds, and they could
Hmm.
just build up enough of a lead compared to the Brewers. And I think that's how they'll win it.
Yeah, interesting. I have the Brewers still winning this division. And yes, even after I just really love um the ceiling for this team. It's definitely a low floor, high ceiling type of team because they have so much young talent. But I kind of love these trades that they made. Like the Devin Williams trade, like yes, he's great, but he's also been injured a little bit. You're gonna have to pay him eventually. He's getting up there in age for sure, and you have Trevor McGill now in your back end. So obviously, the bullpen's gotten weaker. When you looked at Hader, Williams, McGill, you were talking about three solid pitchers. Then you lose Hader. Now you're talking about two solid. Now you'd lose McGill. Or lose
Yeah.
Williams. Now you're talking about one solid. But I just think you have arguably the best offense. You have like almost the best all-around catcher in baseball in William Contreras. Rhys Hoskins can hit 25 home runs if he just stays healthy. I think adding Caleb Durbin, although he hasn't played in the MLB yet, if you look at his numbers, like he was really, really solid in AAA. I think he's going to be really good. And you have another year of Joey Ortiz. It made sense why you didn't want to re-sign Willie Adames. Like Joey Ortiz is a solid bat. He's done really well in spring training, albeit it is spring training. But you look at his numbers, like it's not a terrible option to have a guy in his first season with a 329 on base percentage. I'll take that. And I just think the while the starting rotation is bleak, not a ton of sexy names. You have Freddie Peralta, Brandon Woodruff's coming back, Aaron Savali. I love Tobias Myers. I think this is a team that can win the division. And I think that more just because I don't trust the Cubs because their offense is not that great outside of Kyle Tucker. And you saw, although it was the Dodgers, whatever, they're the
Yeah.
best, they're going to be one of the best teams in baseball. This is a team in the Cubs that I at least looked at through those first two games as they can't win a 6-5 game. That's my opinion, is that if they win a game, it's going to be because it's an all-around team effort. The bullpen, the starting rotation, they get their job done, give up 3 runs, whatever, and then the offense comes alive. But when you look at the Chicago Cubs, Kyle Tucker, great. I don't love their catching depth where they get Miguel Amaya. Nico Horner, not great offensively last year. He's a great defense guy. Matt Shaw, we don't know. Dansby Swanson was kind of up and down last year. Ian Happ was great, but Pete Armstrong needs to have a better offensive year. Like all the
Yeah.
diving catches are great and whatnot, but if you can't hit the ball, that doesn't matter. Like a lot of guys can play defense. It's what can you do offensively?
Yeah. That I'm gonna say this was the hardest, I think, division for me to pick a winner.
Me too.
So I was literally just flip-flopping. I was like, Cubs, Brewers, Cubs, Brewers. So I just flipped and picked one. But
Hmm.
moving on, we'll talk about the NL East. And
This one was
my
tough
my
too.
my winner for the NL East, it was less tough for me than I think the NL Central. I picked the Philadelphia Phillies. I think the Phillies are going to be the team that wins it just because the Mets rotation is a huge question mark. You really don't know what you're going to
It's in
get.
shambles.
Um, Frankie Montas is on the injured reserve. Sean Manaea has a strained oblique. Like, you're really believing in Clay Holmes and Kodai Senga kind of propelling this team to a lot of wins early. And last year, yeah, they did have the a terrible start, and then uh, they had the "Oh My God" song and Grimace, and they were all of a sudden making the wild card.
Uh-huh.
Now, the thing is, I have the Phillies over the Braves is because, Acuna isn't going to be back, I think, until like mid-June or something.
Hmm.
Um, and other than that, I don't think Chris Sale is gonna, have another insanely good season, like runaway Cy Young by the midway point.
Hmm.
So I think there is going to be a little bit of a struggle there. I just think the
Hmm.
Phillies have a really well-rounded team. Jesus Luzardo they acquired, and he's good for a fifth starter. Like,
Hmm.
when you look at it, I just think they have a really good, well-rounded team that they can build around, and I think they'll end up winning the division.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was hoping we could have a little bit more variety, but yeah, no, I have the Phillies too. And I just think the way that they're built and what Atlanta lost and what they haven't been able to recoup yet. I mean, look, Spencer Strider looked phenomenal in spring training, but he was also going up against a bunch of AAA guys on that Red Sox game. Like Roman Anthony and Marcelo Meyer were the two only notable players, and Roman Anthony hasn't touched an MLB field yet. So I just think, look, you add Profar, which is a great ad, but again, it's a 3-year deal for a guy that kind of had like a one-hit wonder season as of now. Like there was a
Yeah.
reason why he only got 1 year, $1 million from the Padres, but then it turned out to be an all-star caliber season. Can he do that again in respectfully a tougher division? When you look at it, it's obvious the Mets going into it, we thought we're going to have a much better pitching staff, but the Phillies have some dogs over there too. How much do we trust a Chris Sale who teetered at the end of the season, couldn't pitch in that all-important game 163 it was, or 162? I can't remember
Yeah.
which game it was that he sat out, but
162.
yeah, 162. He sat out because of injury. Reynaldo Lopez is a guy that, wasn't he was only pitching like once a week or like once every, like they were very strategic about how they handled him. He only pitched 135 innings. It was his first season as a starter in quite a while. How is his arm going to respond? Like those are questions that we have. I'm really high on Spencer Schwellenbach. I think he's going to be a stud, but right now when you have Grant Holmes slotted in your 5 spot of the rotation, I love Grant Holmes. I think he has a very high ceiling. I also just think he has a very low floor. And now Sean Murphy's out, so Drake Baldwin, their rookie catcher, is going to step in. But I just Ozzy Albies did not look great coming back from injury last year. Maybe a full offseason will help him. To your point, Ronald Acuna Jr.'s out, and Michael Harris dealing with injuries last year. But is this a guy that's also going to be your leadoff hitter? We don't know. Just given the lack of success and consistency that he had at the plate last year, only a 722 OPS. Does that scream leadoff hitter? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the main reason I picked them. And then really quickly I did my wild card teams. I have the Braves, the Mets, and the Diamondbacks as my three wild card teams. I think the Mets will somehow get in, or not somehow, like I think really just on the back of their top five hitters, I think they'll somehow make
Hmm.
the wild card. And then Diamondbacks, we've been kind of singing the praises, but they've been kind of just overshadowed because they're not going to win the division over the Dodgers.
Hmm.
But I still think they're going to have a really good bounce back year and end up they only missed the playoffs by one game last year.
Yeah.
Um,
And it was just a
and
complete like screw up at the end.
Yeah, and I think, I'm believing in a Corbin Carroll bounce back, so I think the Diamondbacks will be in the wild card. Um, Moving on, we can move over to the American League. For the AL East, I have the Orioles winning the division. And then I kind of so for each of my predictions, I'm like laid out who I think like the full division is going to be. I have the Yankees finishing fourth in the AL East this year. I really think like Aaron Judge can only do so much when your starting rotation is okay, yeah, you got Carlos Rodon
Wow.
and Max Fried, but your other three starters right now until I think end of June are going to be Will Warren, Marcus Stroman, and Carlos Carrasco at
So
38 years old,
who's your 1, 2, 3 then? Some combination of the Orioles, Red Sox, and
and Blue Jays third.
oh,
I think
oh.
I really don't think the Yankees are going to have a good year. Like I think there's going to be a supreme fall off from grace. Just saying like they really lost. Like you're not gonna have Garrett Cole. Um, and the
Oh,
rest
I
of your
forgot about that.
yeah, the rest of your lineup is kind of dookie. Like besides Judge and I guess Cody Bellinger's your second best hitter. Like
Yeah,
it's like okay, Jazz Chisholm. Like what's he gonna give? Volpe's super inconsistent at the plate. Austin Wells, I don't know if I can believe in Austin Wells to be a real top guy in their rotation or in their lineup like
lineup.
that.
Hmm.
Um, and then it's like a bunch of other question marks around the team. Like
Hmm.
Ben Rice is slotted to be their DH right now or their first baseman. And then Paul Goldschmidt, is he really gonna have a huge bounce back like that? Like it's a bunch of question marks around their team. And then you just add on to the fact like yes, they have a good they traded for Devin Williams and Luke Weaver was insane for them and they have a really good end of their bullpen, but it's like their rotation is so dookie right now. Like you have three guys who probably shouldn't be starting that are going to be their main crutch of their rotation.
Yeah, I'm just like flabbergasted that, and look, I think it's fair to say that because like offensively, the Yankees have a lot of question marks, and even defensively too. Like Jason Dominguez cannot play left field. I
Yeah,
think spring training, him and Jose Altuve should not be touching left field at all this season. And I think
no
it's interesting
Stanton
that,
either.
yeah, no Stan either. Okay, well, I'll cut to the chase. I have the Boston Red Sox winning this division. I actually put together a little parlay. We're putting our money where our mouth is. 50 cents to win 280 bucks with all of my division winners, by the way. So if anyone wants to follow that, quick little FanDuel parlay, have some fun with it. Um, but I look at this Red Sox team, and yes, Lucas Giolito is going to be starting on the IL, but Garrett Crochet, Tanner Houck, Brian Bayo, Walker Bueller, and Lucas Giolito. I'm just going to focus on this team fully healthy. Like, that's how I'm just going to look at it. This is a really nice pitching staff because now you're talking about a Brian Bayo that was originally the ace of this team last year. That is now going to be like the third or fourth starter, depending on how Alex Cora, wants to operate. And then you're talking about a bullpen with Liam Hendricks or Roldis Chapman. You have Garrett Whitlock. Brandon Bernardino wasn't great last year, but I think it's like just solid enough as a middle reliever guy. I mean, you're not asking for much. Alex Bregman is absolutely going to rake uh, at Fenway Park. Tristan
As he's
Casas,
done.
yeah, as he's done, as the numbers have shown. Tristan Casas, I think, is going to have a really nice year. They have a lot of flexibility, the Red Sox do at second base. I think it's going to be Christian Campbell, their up and coming prospect. His numbers are stupid in the minor leagues, albeit the minor leagues. But Jaron Duran was an all-star last year, was great, won the MVP. You have Citadine Rafaela. You have Wilyer Abreu. I think that eventually is going to be Roman Anthony. And then you have Rafael Devers as well with Trevor Story and all these guys. Like, I think this is a really well balanced offense. It has a lot of hope and promise. Now, do they execute is the main question. But I think from a ceiling standpoint, I think this offense altogether is the highest ceiling in that division.
Yeah. And that's kind of the thing that I was like flip-flopping on between the Orioles and the Red Sox is the Orioles have already been here, done that kind of a thing. Like, yeah, they lost a couple pieces in
And
their
their
rotation.
rotation is just
Yeah.
awful.
But it's been like the first of all, question of the Red Sox staying healthy. Like, is Trevor Story going to play at least, let's say, 120 games?
Again,
Like,
yeah.
and it's questions like that. And what is the kind of chemistry going on with like Devers and his thoughts, like
Hmm.
his if Devers is playing third base, that's a really bad decision. But he says I'm playing third base. So
Hmm.
it's like, well, what are we doing? Like
Hmm.
if he's playing third base, that could lead to some losses for the Red Sox just because of his how bad he is defensively.
Hmm.
Now obviously it's not going to be enough to completely take them out of the standings. Like I still have the Red Sox making the wild card.
Hmm.
But I just think the chemistry of what the Orioles already have built and what is still there, I
Hmm.
think might just slightly outpace the Red Sox in terms of wins. Um, and that's who I have as like my top two in the AL East. Um, Moving on, we'll talk about the AL Central. This was another tough division where there's kind of three guys or three teams at the top where it could be the Royals, Guardians, or Tigers, but I
Hmm.
had to go with the Royals.
Hmm.
I think just the Royals, they made some pretty solid additions to their team um, throughout free agency. Like not crazy names, not anyone like uh, out of the blue or anything like that. Like, but they've just made really solid additions, I think. And I think that's what
Hmm.
is good for them. Like they still have a really good starting rotation. They still got Cole Reagan, Seth Lugo, Michael Waka, and Chris Bubich is now going to be
Bubich.
starting games again for them. So it's it's really like kind of building up upon that. They got Carlos Estevez for basically nothing to be
Hmm.
their kind of closer, and they already had some good guys in the back of their pen, like Lucas Urseg. Um,
Yeah.
I think I just think and trading Brady Singer and getting Jonathan India to play second base or to DH for them, like I th- on Fangraphs right now they have India as the DH for the Royals, but
Hmm.
it's he could still play a good
Yeah,
second.
he'll take that job over Michael Massey. I
Yeah,
don't see how Massey would win that.
yeah, and I think if days where Perez isn't catching, he's going to be DHing or playing
Hmm.
first base behind Pasquantino, and they have like Pasquantino's going to be healthy. He missed a big chunk of the season last year and
Hmm.
came back in the playoffs. I think, and then obviously the star power of Bobby Witt. I think that's what's going to make the real difference.
Uh-huh.
Um, that's what I think the team's going to look like. I think they're going to end up winning the AL Central this year.
Yeah, I agree with you with the Kansas City Royals. I think bringing back everyone, you talked about bringing back a guy like Michael Wacha, and you still have Seth Lugo, and you get Michael Lorenzen on a fairly cheap contract. Bubich is there, and the bullpen it's pretty solid of a bullpen. You look at Lucas Erceg, who was really good last year. You have Hunter Harvey, and now you bring in Carlos Estevez. Like you have a lot of flexibility in your back end. Is Salvador Perez going to be that gifted offensively at 36 years old? Is this
Yeah.
like, or 34 years old? I apologize. Could be the next Alexander Ovechkin. Who knows? Vinny Pasquantino is really solid. Unfortunately, just had that injury at the end of last season. And Bobby Witt Jr. might be on the biggest steal of a contract that we have ever seen. This is like one of the best shortstops in the game. They still just lack offense from their outfielders. MJ Melendez was horrible last year offensively. Kyle Isbell, Hunter Renfroe, eh. So they got to figure out like how to get some pop out of that outfield. But I think when you look at them from a lineup perspective, like 1 through 4 is going to be really good. 5 through 9 is just going to have some question marks. But it's such a weak division that I think they can manage.
Yeah, and then last division winner, I have the Texas Rangers winning the
Me
AL
too.
West, and I just think, you know, they've kind of done this ever since 2020, ever since signing Corey Seager and Marcus Semien. Down year in 22, win in 23, down year in 24. I think they're going to come back and bounce back in 25.
Hmm. Interesting enough, we put a few things together in place betting wise.
Yeah.
I did another 50-cent bet on the Rangers and the Dodgers to win the NL, the National League and the American League to meet in the World Series. So could have a cool 13 bucks coming my way. The Texas Rangers were also my pick for the division. I think when you look at the Houston Astros, losing Kyle Tucker was huge. And if Jose Altuve continues to play in left field, I mean, I would if I'm uh, a left-handed hitter, I am not pulling the ball for the life of me. I am slapping that thing to left center and
Yeah,
making
test his
Altuve,
arm.
yeah, making Altuve run for that ball because I look at this Rangers team and I think like they made some really sneaky moves. Like I think Jock Peterson signing there for 2 years, a player option after the first year, like that's a sick move,
Hmm.
especially for a Texas Rangers team that was lacking power. And all he has to do is DH, and then you trade for Jake Berger, send the Marlins a couple prospects, a nice replacement for Nathaniel Lau. And then you look at who they brought in. Chris Martin is a really solid reliever. Luke Jackson showed promise with the Giants last year. Now he's looking to carry that over with the Texas Rangers. Like this is a very, sneaky team that I think like they didn't make a ton of big moves this offseason, but they made a lot of small moves. I guess a big move would bringing back Nathan Eovaldi. Now the question is, can Jacob deGrom stay healthy? Their rotation is kind of up in the air. Is Kumar Rocker going to start in the major leagues? Only time will tell. But offensively, Jonah Heim, Jake Berger, Simeon, Young, Seager, Langford, Carter, Garcia. I mean, this is a great, great offense. It's just a lot of these guys had down years last year, and that's what kind of held them back.
Wrapping up this episode of Breaking News Bears, we'll talk about some of our awards predictions for the upcoming season. I guess we'll start with the AL because we just finished with the AL standings. My AL MVP kind of has to do with my one of my division winners. I'm picking Bobby Witt Jr. to win the AL MVP this year, just because I mean, coming second last year and had an incredible season and literally only lost because Aaron Judge had also such an incredible season. But I think with the fall of the Yankees a little, and I project the Royals to do really good, I think Bobby Witt Jr. is going to end up taking that MVP slot.
Back to putting my money where my mouth is because I have Yordan Alvarez winning the AL MVP, and I know it's crazy saying that when I said that the Texas Rangers are going to win the division. At least that's what I'm predicting. But what if they don't win the division? And I just think you look at what the Houston Astros have lost with Bregman and Kyle Tucker. And if Yordan Alvarez can somehow carry this Houston Astros team offensively to a division title, I could totally see him being in the AL MVP conversation. I'm assuming he's going to play right field or right field, I'm assuming, just because Kyle Tucker is gone and he's not great offensively, but this is a guy that still last year played 147 games, 35 home runs. Yes, the RBIs might not be there, but still, this is a guy with a 973 career OPS. I think he can very well win AL MVP, and he's part of my 50 cents to win 12 grand parlay that you'll hear
Um,
more of.
my next pick for an award winner for AL Cy Young is going to be the new ace of the Boston Red Sox. I picked Garrett Crochet. I was kind of tough because I was thinking, okay, Tariq Skubal won it last year, and then just looking at other options in the AL, I was like, I don't. It's very rare that somebody repeats as an award winner,
Hmm.
unless you're Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
Um, but like, so I was just thinking, okay, new guys in the American League, and Garrett Crochet is projected to have a really good season. Like
Hmm.
his pitches have been, at least so far in spring training, he's looked phenomenal.
Hmm.
And he's projected to just keep that high strikeout rate that he had in Chicago and kind
Hmm.
of just expand on it more in Boston or yeah, in Boston. So yeah, I just think Garrett Crochet is my pick for AL Cy Young. I just think he's gonna go into Boston, be revitalized as a left-handed pitcher. And I know it's kind of hard to say because, a left-handed pitcher in Fenway leaves you susceptible to, the Green Monster being so short. A lot of right-handed batters can club you.
Hmm.
But I think Garrett Crochet is just going to have such an incredible season.
Well, I'm gonna go back to the team where you picked your AL MVP, and I'm gonna go with Cole Reagans to win the AL Cy Young. I just don't know if Crochet's arm is gonna make it through a full season. I mean, let's be honest. I get it was the Chicago White Sox, the team that he was on previously, but he only pitched like 27 innings over a month and a half span. Like this is a guy that still hasn't been a full starter yet. And Cole Reagan's pitched 880 plus innings, had 223 strikeouts. I think he has a chance to win the AL Cy Young Award. And again, like, yeah, it's hard for a pitcher to win it back-to-back years. I think Scoople's still going to be phenomenal, but maybe a little bit voter fatigue, although he's only won it once, just to like, give it to someone else. But I mean, you look at Crochet, 146 innings pitched. Yes, he was dominant in those, but I still think it's just not enough innings to get it done fully to win an AL Cy Young. So I just think Cole Reagan's another lefty, but definitely a lot better that we've seen over a course of a year compared to Crochet.
Yeah, and for my AL Rookie of the Year, I picked someone from the Tigers. I'm picking Jackson Jobe to win the
Hmm.
AL Rookie of the Year. I just think the Tigers rotation, besides Tariq Skubal, is kind of a big question mark. Reese Olson started like 22 games for them last year, and then they re-signed Jack Flaherty after going to the Dodgers, and then everyone knew he was going to come back because of how he was glazing the Tigers on their run
Yeah,
to the playoffs, the gritty Tigs.
yeah.
But uh, I think Jackson Jobe's really going to have a spot in that rotation from day one, and he's just going to have the most opportunity compared to other guys like you've talked about before with Christian Campbell. I think there's too much of a logjam of players in Boston right now, and Roman Anthony, same thing. There's
Hmm.
too much of a logjam for them to really get unless one of them really breaks out or someone in Boston struggling really early and they have to put in like one of the new young bloods to put like get a jolt into this team.
Hmm.
I think Jackson Jobe's already basically got a spot in the rotation and he just needs to be solid for a good amount of time. Like have a solid rookie pitching season, like somewhere around a 3.5 ERA in 28, 29 starts would be more than enough to get him a rookie of the year placement.
Yeah, you were dogging on my AL Rookie of the Year pick. I am going with Roman Anthony here, and it's only because I think uh, with the lack of offense that they've gotten from guys like Masataka Yoshida, Citadine Rafaela is cool, but is he an outfielder? What exactly is he? Wilyer Abreu was kind of up and down. Like that's just not. I don't view Wilyer Abreu or Citadine Rafaela as like two guys that are automatic locks. Like if they feel like Roman Anthony is better than these two guys, like then so be it. And if he excels, then he excels. I just think it's hard also for a pitcher to win Rookie of the Year. Although Yamamoto did get hurt last year, like he still put up pretty solid numbers in that season. I mean, obviously he lost out to one of the best pitchers in the game, but
Yeah.
uh, I just Jackson Joby's going to be a five starter. You wonder how they're going to manage his innings. What's that leash going to be like? And I just think if Roman Anthony just starts raking oh my God, not Wrigley Field, at Fenway Park, I think he's got a shot to win it, and he's part of my parlay.
Moving on, we'll go over to the NL. My NL MVP is Shohei Ohtani.
Ooh,
And this
lame
is kind
answer.
of I know, but it's just this is the question I posed to you before the pod where I said if Ohtani has a season where he, hits around 45 to 50 home runs again and has like a 3.5 ERA in like 15 to 20 starts,
Yeah,
is he not just a guaranteed lock to win MVP again? Like
yeah,
it's just kind of like a cheat code for MVP at this point. Do do voters get tired? But if he's on the best team, like if he's on a
yeah.
record-setting Dodger team and he's very clearly the best player and he's playing two positions,
Hmm.
he's like, is it not very clearly just gonna be him? Like
Hmm.
it just seems like it's such a cheat code to just okay, I'm picking Shohei Ohtani to be my MVP. Like I don't know. I tried looking for other players and I looked at my division winners. Like, can Kyle Tucker really have that good of a season to really win? Can Juan Soto hit like 55 home runs or something and like
Hmm.
really like and the thing about these other guys is like Juan Soto, he's so poor defensively. And that's kind of like the thing with Otani where it's like, well, he's playing pitcher and that's like the hardest
Yeah,
thing to do well in baseball.
yeah.
Um and then you look at I was trying to find other players like Bryce Harper winning MVP as a first baseman, he'd have to
Hmm.
do a lot. There's just so many question marks around these other guys in the NL where it's just like so easy just to pick. All right, Ohtani hit 50 home runs, steal like 30 bases again, and have a 3.5 ERA in around 20 starts
Hmm.
and get the MVP again. Like
Hmm.
that's my justification.
Yeah, I look. I mean, Otani, obvious. Like that's. I'm gonna go a little bit out of the Otani realm of things. I didn't even pick him to win NL MVP last year, and he ended up winning it. And I'm gonna go back to who I picked last year to win it. And I'm gonna go back to Bryce Harper. I look at him. He's 32 years old. He's now going to be the permanent first baseman for the Phillies. And yeah, he might not be the best defensively. But this is also a guy that can just absolutely rake. And I just think, well, I don't think anyone's going to get voter fatigue voting for Shohei Ohtani, but I just look at Bryce Harper, and if he can kind of replicate this season, maybe hit a few more home runs, get to like that 2019 Harper. I know that's when he was in the heart of his prime. He was like 26, 27 years old. But that was a guy that hit 35 home runs, 114 RBIs. If he could replicate that type of season this year, especially coming off an injury and all that, and the Phillies end up winning the division, call it by like 6 or 7 games. Like I think Bryce Harper could be deserving of the NL MVP, and I think it would be super cool just to see him win an NL MVP. Like just add one final thing, to the mantle of what's already been a Hall of Fame career. So I'm gonna go with Bryce Harper. He was my pick for NL MVP.
Yeah, he was the only one where I was thinking would have a chance. like out of everyone else
Hmm.
in the NL to have a real chance. Like I was like, okay, Tatis, first of all, can't stay healthy. And
Yeah.
the Padres aren't going to be that good at all. Like I think,
Well, you didn't even have him making the playoffs.
yeah, I don't think the Padres are going to do much anyway. And I was like, Ketel Marte, he was third last year, but
Yeah.
is he really gonna like do enough to surpass either of like the more bigger names?
Hmm.
My NL Cy Young is also kind of a cop out. I picked Paul Skeens, and I
Boo.
know it's kind of tough to predict because there is a sophomore slump, and that is undeniable. Most players do have a sophomore slump. Um, but I just think Paul Skeens is just so obvious to pick,
Hmm.
where what he's done already so far in his career,
Hmm.
in just one season, the sheer dominance that he had as a rookie,
Yeah.
if he can build on that more,
Hmm.
it's just a very clear like, okay, it's going to be Paul Skeens. But I looked at other players, like I looked at Chris Sale potentially running it back, and then like I said, it's very hard for pitchers to win Cy Youngs twice in a row.
Yeah.
And then I
Especially
looked at
36.
yeah, and then I looked at Zach Wheeler. I was
Yeah.
thinking Zach Wheeler. I was thinking uh someone else. I was thinking Corbin Burns from the
Hmm.
Diamondbacks. I was thinking him like, going to play at home. Like how much does that really help him?
Yeah.
But then it all just came back to like, okay, Paul Skeens is going to put up a crap ton of numbers.
Yeah.
And he's really that ace of the Pirates team. And that the only thing that might screw him up is like defensively. But I had to go with Paul Skeens.
Yeah, well, Paul Skeen's part of the Evan Davis parlay, friend of the show, friend of the show. But I guess just to, switch things up a little bit, I'll go with Yoshinobu Yamamoto. I think this is a guy who, I mean, he looked absolutely dominant in that game 2 start against the Yankees in the World Series. Gave up one hit. It was a Juan Soto solo home run. Made Aaron Judge look foolish on his like that sinker two seam mix that he has going. Looked really, really good in that opener against the Chicago Cubs. Obviously, those numbers count towards his regular season stats, but I think when you look at Yamamoto and had he not gotten hurt, I think it would have been a lot closer for NL Cy, or not NL Cy Young, NL Rookie of the Year, rather than Paul Skeens being a runaway favorite. I think Yamamoto definitely could have garnered maybe like 9 to 10 first place votes. I think that would be fair to say. But I just think a second season, you talk about the sophomore slump, but Yamamoto is going to be 26 years old. I don't think
Yeah.
this isn't like a sophomore slumber. It was like a 22-year-old breakout season, and now teams have time to adjust to him. You look at his pitch mix and his repertoire. This is a guy kind of like Sasaki that just has the stuff. And I look at, the Dodgers are going to be great. Yamamoto's probably going to be their like number one starter. I could imagine whether that be going into the regular season once their rotation fully gets back up again, or in the playoffs too. And you just look at the way that he was able to come back from injury, still be dominant. I think the way that he pitches under the bright lights and in the biggest moments, I think he could win NL Cy Young.
All right, and then moving on, we got NL Rookie of the Year. I went for Dylan Cruz from the Washington Nationals, and I just think,
Man.
I mean, I already told you this before with Roki Sasaki. I think, him finding out his spot in the Dodgers rotation is gonna it might take him some time to really figure things out. Um, and I just think Dylan Cruz is projected to just have a really good season for the Washington Nationals. He's, in his brief amount of time that he was in the big leagues last year, he was really good.
Hmm.
Um, and now we just look at it and say, okay, can he build on that? Can
Yeah.
he kind of put things together and have a really solid season for the Nationals? He's right now projected to be their number two hitter, and if he can just, I think he can have a really good season for the Nationals. I think he's gonna be up there. He's the number three overall ranked prospect in baseball right now,
Hmm.
behind Sasaki and Roman Anthony, and I just think he's just gonna put
Well, he's
things
number
together.
two. Sasaki shouldn't be a prospect.
Yeah, but that's what they have it as.
Yeah.
And I think he's gonna have the most opportunity playing every day,
Hmm.
um, compared to Sasaki, where it's like he, yes, he's gonna pitch a lot of games, but is he there's a lot more chance for him to have rough outings than compared to
Hmm.
like a Yamamoto who was already 25 coming over from Japan,
Hmm.
and was kind of knew what he was up to. But that's a 23-year-old starter in Sasaki who never really pitched this much before.
Hmm.
So I think Dylan Cruz is just gonna have that opportunity, and he's gonna have a really good season, I think.
I'll mix it up a little bit just because
Yeah.
you had Dylan Cruz. He's part of the Evan Davis fan club, the parlay that we have rolling. Um, but I think for NL Rookie of the Year, and again, like we always say, it's hard to pick rookies and whatnot. I'm gonna venture out of the realm. I'm gonna take a long shot, but just for the hell of it, give me Jordan Lawler on the Arizona Diamondbacks to win NL Rookie of the Year. I just think the way that the depth chart looks at shortstop for the Diamondbacks, it's not the greatest. You have currently Geraldo Perdomo slotted there, Garrett Hampson there as well, but Jordan Lawler was a beast in AAA. I thought he could have even been called up last year for the Diamondbacks, but I think like the fact that they were going on that really insane run could have made the playoffs. Like that's not the time you want to bring in a rookie.
Hmm.
But I could totally see Lawler with this team by June, especially now that the division. They already know it's out of reach, so they're kind of competing for the wild card. But get hit the juices flowing early. I think Jordan Lawler, a guy that grades out really well across the board, I think he can win NL Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, and like you said, the Diamondbacks kind of already know they're not going to be winning the division just because of how dominant the Dodgers are going to be. And
Hmm.
Jordan Lawler really, like you said, he does profile really well as a hitter, as a speed guy. Like he's still really young. He's 22.
Hmm.
He played a bit in 23, but only 14 games. He still has the eligibility. And I think, last year was kind of rough for him where he did miss some games early, or he missed a lot of the minor league season last year
Yeah.
with injury, but when he did play, he was incredible. So
Hmm.
I still think there is a way for him to make this team for the Diamondbacks and really prove to himself and say like right so far in spring training he's looked really well or
Yeah.
looks really good for the Diamondbacks, and I
Yeah.
think he has a way to put things together and uh really make this team and make a name for himself. Anyways, that'll just about do it for this episode of Breaking News Bears. I once again want to thank my co-host Evan Davis, and I once again want to thank you guys, the listeners. MLB regular season is coming up really soon. Like I said, within a week, we're going to be having official games that aren't just the Dodgers and Cubs in Japan. And we'll see how these award predictions and division predictions all end up wrapping up. We'll do a midway uh point recap and see how our picks are looking, and if someone is really on fire, like someone last year, like Luis Heel, for example, came out of
Yeah.
nowhere. But yeah, I think that'll just about do it for this episode of Breaking News Bears. Thank you all again once for listening.